I'll change it to be able to cover the 13th. So the other thing is, Bernie. It's called Poppy Bear. It's
All right, here we go. I call the meeting to order for the February 25th regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Terrific. Now is the time for the invocation by our very own Mr. Birthday Boy himself. Happy birthday, Paul. Our Harbor Master, Paul Blank, will lead us in the invocation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members, and members of the public. It is an honor to serve in this capacity. The invocation this evening was composed to reflect the values of community, leadership, and collaboration, which I believe are the keys to the success of the City Council's work. Please prepare yourselves to pray with me. Gracious and loving God, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude and humility. We thank you for the gift of this day, for the opportunity to gather as a community, and for the leadership of those entrusted with guiding this beautiful city. We ask that your presence be with us and that your wisdom be upon this council, that their decisions may reflect justice, kindness, and a deep commitment to the well-being of all who call Newport Beach home. May they work together with integrity, vision, and a spirit of cooperation to promote the common good and preserve the unique beauty and values of this city. Grant them clarity of thought, compassion in their hearts, and the strength to act with courage, even when faced with challenges. May their leadership inspire unity and foster a vibrant future for all residents and generations to come. We also pray for peace in our community, safety for all, and a spirit of cooperation that transcends any differences. Bless the work that is done here today and the lives it will impact. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Paul. That was nice. Councilman Wagon, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Put your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get right into the presentation for the theme this year, which is all about Celebrate Newport and the history of our great city. I'm very honored to have Bernie Svalstad here. He's the president of the Newport Beach Historical Society. The Historical Society connects people, both past, present, and future, by collecting, inspiring, educating, and preserving and protecting the unique and vibrant history of the city of Newport Beach, including Balboa, Corona del Mar, Newport Harbor, its islands in the Back Bay, Newport Coast, and Newport Mesa. Originally formed by Bill Grundy back in 1967, and it was converted to a nonprofit officially in 2014. So, Bernie, the floor is yours. We'll be doing a history on the Balboa Village and the pavilion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. I'm going to start out talking about kind of thumbnail sketch. I think I only have 5-7 minutes, I understand, something like that. It's going to be kind of brief. But I'm going to talk about the history of the Fun Zone and Balboa Pavilion. 1936, Fred Lewis leased the fun zone land to Anderson, Al Anderson, turning what was once a boatyard into one of the biggest attractions. At that time, the fun zone took up a whole block from Washington Street to Palm Street. The site included iconic arcade, as well as a merry-go-round, bumper cars, and Ferris wheels. While I'm talking, you probably can't see it, but there's 17 pictures going on up there of pavilion and fun zone area. The 45-foot Ferris wheel was built in 1918 and purchased secondhand from a company in Seattle. Bob Speth, a former Fun Zone employee, had purchased the Ferris wheel when he got out of the Coast Guard and sold it in 1964. 1948, Anderson purchased the land from Fred Lewis and owned the land until 1972. Anderson later lost the entire property in a lawsuit due to diving on the beach, an event that happened. Various lending institutions, which wasn't so good, owned the fun zone until 1985. They had a lot of trouble. When it was bought by Jonathan Bank, who obtained a permit to bulldoze the whole area and rebuild, which never happened. In a surprise twist, 3 years later, the fun zone was sold to a group of Japanese investors who wanted to turn the area into condominiums. This would be great for the council. When it was brought to the city council, overwhelming response by the public, got it turned down, so that was not approved, fortunately. Meanwhile, Bob Speth had joined hands with another former Fun Zone employee, Joe Tunstall, who I knew Joe in Fountain Valley, and Joe was actually owned a bike shop there. They signed a 25-year lease to operate the Ferris wheel and merry-go-round. After investors defaulted to the bank, Speth and Tunstall bought the fun zone themselves in 1994. Later, the Newport Harbor Nautical Museum purchased the land in 2005. In 2010, they launched a $35 million fundraising campaign to expand the fun zone property with more retail, dining, and marina opportunities on the waterfront property and adjacent docks. However, they scaled down the scope of the project very quickly. 2016, the Discovery Science Center of Orange County acquired the Nautical Museum, which had been rebranded as Explore Ocean. There's going to be a lot of changes here. Via merger, renaming the Nautical Museum again Ocean Quest. Eventually, however, in December 2020, Discovery Cube put the property up for sale, citing financial stress due to the pandemic. The fun zone was finally sold in 2021 to Chartwell Real Estate Development. Henry Pyle, who probably most of you probably met, Chartwell's operating partner. He led the acquisition on behalf of the Pyle family, who have lived here in residence in Newport Beach since 1960s. Under the operating name Balboa Fun Zone Investments, LLC, the Fun Zone is now being considered for updating to be a new dynamic fun zone. And the city, you guys have probably already seen the plans. They won't let us have them yet. But the mayor's put them out to the public. So anyway, Newport Beach Historical Society has been operating a museum at the Balboa Peninsula for the last 10 years. We moved this summer over to the Fun Zone because, as you know, the Balboa Library and Fire Station is disappearing at the end of the year probably. So I think that gives you thumbnail of what's happened at the fun zone. I'm going to talk now for a few minutes about a quick thumbnail of the Balboa Pavilion. That opened up in 1906, and that's the same time that the Newport Beach city was formed. And the pavilion quickly became boating and social club. The tourists from Los Angeles arrived on the Pacific Electric Railway and used the pavilion as a gathering place for people that are embarking to go to Catalina and other beach areas. Bathhouse, the pavilion originally had a bathhouse where visitors rent swimsuits and towels. They had a dance hall, a boathouse for renting small vessels, Balboa Theater, which provided entertainment. That was around the 1906 to 1910. 1910 to 20s, it became a popular destination for tourists. 30s, it declined in popularity due to the Great Depression. In the 40s, believe it or not, I didn't know this before, the Navy took it over, and the Navy had a training center at the pavilion, which I never heard of before. In the 40s, or the 50s and 60s, transformed into a nightclub and later a restaurant. In the 70s, had restoration area going on there at the pavilion. 84 was added to the National Register of Historical Places, and in 2000 to the present continues to serve landmark restaurant and harbor for tours. So that gives you a quick thumbnail sketch of it. I have some flyers here from the Historical Society at the Pavilion, March 24th. We're putting on Bill Lobdale. He's going to talk about the craziness of Mr. Collins and all the things he did, from what I understand. Should be interesting. It's a dinner, and so it's on our website. I have these flyers here. If we could pass them out to the council. The mayor is going to open up, talk just briefly to invite everybody. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I thank you for...
Well, thank you, Bernie. This was terrific.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in the 1940s it was a naval training center.
I didn't either.
That's remarkable. Well, I love that we do this, and I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll all see you on March 24th. And Bernie, I do have some photos of the fun zone, so we could put some of those renderings up, but this was something that the Pyle family has put together.
Trying to get it.
Yeah, well, there it is. What's that? Yeah, this is just, I think when you talk about Balboa Village, you talk about the history, you talk about the oldest part in the city. Kudos to the Pyle family for what they're working to put together, which is a massive investment in the Balboa Village area, which I think will help really drive more business and elevate the entire area. So we're very excited for this someday soon.
Make one comment also. For the preservation of the history of Newport Beach, some people in the wrong newspapers or something have said that another museum is the only one in the city. We've been here 10 years. We have a museum, and if we go away when this goes away because they don't have a place for us. So we need your help, and we got a committee, and we're working real hard to find property, permanent property that we own, and for permanency for Historical Society.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Grant?
Just real quickly, Bernie, I wanted to mention how wonderful it is to see you continuing to contribute so much to our community as a former mayor in Fountain Valley, and then moving here to Newport Beach and making your home here, and then dedicating so much time and effort to revitalizing McFadden Square, working on this Historical Society, and many other projects that you've worked on in the city. It's really a pleasure to have you as one of our esteemed and distinguished residents, so thank you so much.
Square
Well, with that. Yeah. Well, thank you, Bernie. Thank you for that, the Newport Beach Historical Society. Okay, so now's the time for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items.
Mayor Stapleton, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. As I did at the last meeting, I wanted again to comment on this new agenda format that we have. I'm not sure if the new council members are quite aware, the sequence is quite different than it used to be. And as you may or may not be aware, the normal sequence of events at the council meetings is spelled out in Council Policy A1. And Council Policy A1 does admittedly give the mayor discretion to change the order of events. However, if this is going to be the new format, I think the intention of the mayor's discretion was just for some minor changes. And if there's going to be a major change to the sequence, and so that the public will be better informed, I think you really should consider collectively agreeing on what the sequence should be and amending Policy A1 to show the new sequence. And then I also wanted to point out, perhaps inadvertently, in this new format, the current announcement is rather confusing and will be to newcomers to our council meetings. They will not understand if this is just an announcement about the length of comments that are allowed, or whether this is their only opportunity they will have to comment on anything on the agenda, or this is intended as only the opportunity for non-agenda comments, or exactly what it's for. I am guessing that this is intended for comments on non-agenda items in the closed session, which now comes at the end of the meeting instead of immediately after this, but I think that could be clarified, and perhaps there could just be a notice about how public comments are handled, and then the opportunity for non-agenda comments if that's what the council wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor Stapleton and members of the council. My name is Nancy Scarborough. I'm addressing item number 5 under the consent calendar. It is regarding GPAC appointments. I have been on the General Plan Advisory Committee meeting since the beginning of the meetings. I am the chair, or was the chair, currently chair of the Safety Committee, and I participated in 4 other subcommittees. I went to all of the meetings. I attended all the steering committee meetings. I attended the earlier General Plan Advisory Committee meetings, where was previous to this General Plan Advisory Committee. I know that 6 people have not been reappointed. Of those 6, 4 of them we had under different circumstances. 3 of them did not show any interest, and 1 did not respond to the request for reconsideration. So those of you that know me know that the things that I do from my heart, and I work really hard for things that I think are the best thing for the city. And I have put my heart and soul into the general plan committees that I've served on. I would hope that the decisions to exclude Charles Klob and myself are not generated through politics and do not have anything to do with politics. I think that the things that make a successful committee are a variety of different perspectives, different opinions, and different experiences. And I think that that committee has had that, and I think that I have been a very vibrant portion of that, and I hope that you will reconsider and reappoint myself and hopefully Charles Klob. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public speakers? Okay, seeing none. All right, now is the time for council announcements, oral reports from council members on committee activities, and time for council members to request an A1 item to be placed on a future agenda. Councilmember Wigan.
Yeah, attended a few meetings. The Vector Control went into contract with Griffin Structures for pre-construction work for their headquarters. They're the guys that are working on the Whitty Hall and done several other projects here in Newport. So we're working with them to perhaps build out our new facility there at Vector Control. On Wednesday, I'll be attending Orange County Sanitation District, and on Thursday, the Association for Orange County Cities is having their legislative and regulatory meeting that I'll be participating in. Thanks.
Terrific. Councilmember Bartow. Okay. Councilmember Grant.
Just a few things. I wanted to mention that last week I joined Balboa Island residents at the Balboa Historical Museum in welcoming LA County fire evacuees that have relocated to Balboa Island, and there are a number of them. I was poignant to continue to learn of the devastation caused by the fires and how grateful these families are to be welcomed into the Newport Beach community. Also over the weekend, back on Balboa Island, I joined Mayor Stapleton and Councilmember Blum at Fire Station number 1 on Balboa Island for a town hall offering island residents information about fire safe practices and emergency evacuation. That presentation is especially relevant given current situation in our communities here in Southern California. And again, I want to especially thank the Newport Beach Fire Department and the fire marshal and his team for their continued efforts to serve our community by always showing up at either individual residents' homes or town halls. It doesn't matter, one or many. They're very willing to show up and share about fire safe practices, and it's really meaningful to our entire community for the special attention that is being paid at this critical time in our city's history and in this aspect of public safety. So thank you again.
Terrific. Thank you. Councilmember Blum.
Nothing dead.
Okay. Councilmember Weber.
Nothing.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Kleiman.
Thank you, Mayor. I participated in the quarterly meeting with Newport Mesa Unified School District with Councilmember Bartow and the ACCOC and CASLAR webinar on new residential rehab case law and a number of meetings to discuss proposed legislation in this arena on the heels of our DHCS audit. I attended the new Gallery Sonder exhibit in Corona Del Mar, new business there in the village, as well as our aviation committee meeting.
Terrific. And for me, I returned from the UK. I was out on visit as an ambassador for the city of Newport Beach, as your mayor, representing us in the UK honors with Visit Newport Beach. I mentioned last time that I was going. I did travel on my own dime with my wife, and we had a great time traveling through England and spent a lot of time in London with Visit Newport and really showcasing all the highlights of the city of Newport Beach. So went to an event with probably 500 people. Newport Beach was on a massive big screen, and it was much better than the rainy, cold weather they had in London. So I said, what better to visit us here at Newport Beach? So it worked out really well. Kudos to the entire Visit Newport and their team, because they are certainly going out and getting the people from all over the world to come visit us and shop, dine, and here in Newport. So I also attended the CDMRA monthly meeting, gave a presentation. I'm on this mayor's tour right now, so I did CDMRA, I did Balboa Island, and then I did Central Newport last night. So had a lot of fun with that, enjoying making the rounds, talking to the people. Okay, Madam Clerk, please read the notice regarding public comments on the consent calendar.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 11. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion, the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Okay, terrific. Councilmember Wygan, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce related to items 1 through 11?
No, I do not.
Bartow?
No, I do not.
Okay, Councilmember Grant?
None.
Blom?
I have none.
Weber?
I have a conflict on 8 due to my personal residence.
Okay, terrific. Mayor Pro Tem Kleiman?
I have none.
Okay, I have none either, but I would just like to make a comment on item number 10. We do have Blake Resnick here in the audience. He's the creator, founder, and CEO of Brink Drones, the U.S.-made drone company that sounds like we just made a contract on potentially. To bring in a number of drones to help protect our residents here in the city of Newport Beach. Do you have one in the audience? Did you guys bring it in? Can we pull it up? There it is. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to, why don't you come up here real quick, Blake, and just say that and maybe put it on the table so people, can I do that now? Is that fine?
Maybe outside.
Yeah. Can you fly it in here?
Our indoor drone, totally.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I was just saying this is the world's first purpose-built 911 response drone.
Fantastic.
So it's designed to take off from a citywide network of recharging stations and then hook into computer-aided dispatch. So the second someone calls 911, we grab that GPS coordinate, and then we use it to automatically dispatch an aircraft to that location. So we can respond to 911 calls with this technology in tens of seconds.
Fantastic. Oh, I look forward to seeing these fly around the city. Let him know his age. He could mention his age if he wanted to, but I don't know if that's relevant.
we can all guess.
You're embarrassing me. I'm 25. Yeah.
It's remarkable.
I'm 25.
Went to college at 14, dropped out with a Peter Thiel scholarship to go fund his own business, and here he is 4 years into this venture, and very proud of the hard work, and
Thank you.
We're excited to have these flying around. So,
I really appreciate it and feel exactly the same way.
and thank you for coming down from Seattle to be here today. So, and kudos to our first responders, to our police department, to Chief Minor, Jonathan Stafford, all the work that you guys did to put this together, and we're very excited and giving you guys all the tools and resources you need to protect our residents here in Newport. So, okay, terrific. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move the consent calendar, noting amendments to the minutes and recusal of Councilmember Weber on item number 8.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Bartow seconds. All right, we'll have public comments on consent calendar items 1 through 11.
Mayor Stapleton, members of the council, my name again is Jim Mosier. First, I'd like to second the comments of Ms. Scarborough, which I believe are actually on item number 11, the confirmation of reappointments to the General Plan Advisory Committee. As I said in writing, I do not understand the logic of why you would, of the 24 past members who were expressing an interest in continuing the work, which is supposed to finish in just a couple of months. I do not understand the logic of passing over just 2 of those, especially when the 2 that you're passing over were more engaged, had better attendance than many of the ones who you are reappointing. And it sounds like they have received no explanation of why they were passed over, and I am curious what that explanation is, and perhaps you want to give that. And the second consent calendar item I wanted to comment on is item 5. If you listened carefully to the council announcements, you would have heard that last night there was a meeting, a rare meeting of the city's aviation committee, and the relatively many people that were there in attendance were told that if they came here this afternoon, they would have an opportunity to hear the council discuss the proposal, which is item 5, to restructure the aviation committee, as I understand it, as now kind of a support group for the airport. And I did come here this afternoon, not specifically for that, but your debate and discussion of that proposal has been less than enlightening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Adam Leverance. I wanted to echo Mr. Mosier and Ms. Scarborough's comments about the GPAC. It appears to a lot of people like an effort to make things more homogenous, and I'd just encourage, we have diverse ideas. I've encountered a lot of really intelligent people over the past year being this involved, and I don't think there should be a great level of fear of opinions that differ from our own. And if somebody's been thoroughly engaged and committed, as Mr. Mosier stated, it seems odd to exclude them at this point in time, and it just doesn't look good. And you're all politicians, that's how you got here. Just think about appearances and what looks right, and be open to things that maybe seem not favorable. And even me, I've got way nutty left-wing friends and way nutty right-wing friends, but I keep the mindset that I can learn something from any of them, and that's proven helpful over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, any other comments by council members? All right, let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3 and 4. Ordinance 2025-1, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach granting non-exclusive franchise agreements for commercial solid waste and divertible materials handling services within the City of Newport Beach, and ordinance 2025-2, updating the military equipment use policy for the Newport Beach Police Department. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Okay, terrific. You guys are free to stay, but you probably have other plans, so that's congratulations and thank you, and look forward to working together. All right, thank you. I'm assuming it's nicer out here than it is in Seattle right now, so maybe go to the beach. Fair enough. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, so now we're going to go to current business. Item number 12, an ordinance designating a portion of Corona Del Mar as a safety enhancement zone and expanding West Newport safety enhancement zone to include Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day holidays. We have a quick staff report on this? No. We don't need one? No? Okay. Does anyone need a staff report? No? Okay. I'm going to save you some time. All right, cool. Any comments or questions? Go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to our police department and community development staff for putting this together. I think we are overdue to mirror the existing safety enhancement zone policy that's been in place on the peninsula over for Corona Del Mar. As I said at our planning session last month, or I guess earlier this month, the beaches are a wonderful amenity for all to enjoy, but I think we have a duty to maintain order for both our residents and visitors. I'm glad to see that we've properly budgeted for awareness prior to the weekends when these travel fines will be applicable. The goal isn't to be punitive, it's to disincentivize some of the unwanted behaviors that we're seeing increase so that everyone can enjoy the coast safely. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Wigan?
Eric, you'll have to come back up. I do want to not have a staff report, but there were some changes that the chief sent, and there were some updates to the agenda item that I think were related to the proposed boundaries. And maybe if you could just pop that up on the screen, you can show us a map, and the public can see what those proposed boundaries are that differ from what's in the initial staff report.
And just so we're clear, we'd be adopting the amended ordinance with this language.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
2 readings.
City Council members. I'll skip ahead here on the PowerPoint to bring up the map that Councilmember Wigan was talking about. So the original staff report and ordinance talked about the Corona Del Mar area, and it extended the border on the north side all the way to San Joaquin Hills and to MacArthur on the west side of the city and Hazel Drive on the east side of the city. Upon closer examination of the intent of this, we focus more on our reporting district 44, which is the flower streets in Corona Del Mar. So the map image on the right there is reporting district 44. So this ordinance would entail the border of 5th Avenue on the north, which extends to Buck Gully, and then on the east side would go from Buck Gully down to the Pacific Ocean. On the south and Newport Harbor, and along Avocado on the west side, up back to Coast Highway to Dahlia and up to 5th Avenue. The West Newport zone will remain the same that is in effect for the 4th of July holiday. There's no changes to those boundaries.
And so the image on the left is the existing West Newport?
Correct.
Okay.
And just one other question I have. The existing mutual aid we have with CHP and sheriffs and everyone that's on 4th of July, that won't be adjusted on this. Everything's going to stay the same in West Newport. There's not going to be an additional tranche of those officers going over to CDM, correct?
Correct. We're still in the planning phases preparing for the 4th of July, as we usually do. But we will take into account the increased demand in the Corona Del Mar area.
And so will that come to us if there's a change in that MOU with other agencies as far as what they're patrolling in West Newport on the 4th? What if they do happen to be asked to go over to CDM?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Thanks.
I could just tell you anecdotally, I mean, I've lived on the peninsula for 20 years now, and when I first got down there in 2006, we'd created a festival party vibe where we shut down the streets, we put out porta potties, and we welcome people to, encourage that kind of activity and behavior. I can tell you that last year was probably the calmest I'd ever seen it. So having resources also in Corona Del Mar would probably not be too much of a strain for what I've noticed. But kudos to your team and all that you've done to help make more of a family-friendly vibe with fun on the peninsula throughout the last 20 years. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
good job. Okay. Anything else? Let's go to public comments first. Yeah, do we have public comments on this item?
Mayor Stapleton, members of the council. First of all, that this seems to be intended to restrain behavior from visitors to Newport Beach for the most part, or vacationers here. But the tripling of fines is going to affect all residents within these designated areas on three-day weekends each year. And I'm wondering if you have clarity, I do not, on what fines will be tripled. For instance, if they have an innocent guest who is not partying, a parking violation, is that tripled during this time? What other possible violations might an innocent resident be subjected to? And do they really want that on 9 days during the year? And then secondly, it appears to include the Corona Del Mar reporting district. In this, we are somewhat relaxing the standard for how much police activity would trigger the need for an enhancement zone. So have we looked elsewhere in the city for other areas that on this weekend, other reporting districts that have enhanced numbers that might be as high as Corona Del Mar? You have one letter from someone on the peninsula, apparently in a different reporting district, who thinks they are impacted on holiday weekends. So again, I'm not understanding the logic of what you're doing. Why would it be Corona Del Mar and not those other reporting districts if there are some that have similar numbers? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back here. Any other comments by council members?
Yeah, I do. I just want to ask staff if there's a way that we can get a report out on this, maybe after the 4th of July, just to kind of see if there was, an increase in that demand, or if there was any. A part of me wants to say, when I looked at the map, the overlay or the area for the enhancement could go beyond that scope on the peninsula, and then we're adding a new scope in CDM, which I'm okay with. But I'd like to come back in a year and kind of see how this is performed, if this really has a necessity, or if it's something that maybe we look at for expanding down on the peninsula beyond the area that it showed up there by what was that, 32nd to 40 something street. Like, should we look at maybe going down the peninsula further? It's a lot of beach there that's left unattended. So I know that it's improved over the years, but maybe that's something we can look at going forward. So just curious if this would be more of a pilot project to see if we should expand in other areas of the coastal zone, or if we should pull back if it's unnecessary. I just want to make sure that we look at and not leave any stone unturned on that. But I'm happy with this. I just would like to kind of see a report out maybe a year from now, or at least a year from after the 4th of July.
Okay. Yeah.
And can I make the recommendation, because part of why I'm in support of this is talking to the lifeguards and kind of the increased traffic that they've gotten specific to Corona Del Mar Beach and people who park, and how that kind of spreads out, particularly on those weekends. And if we're going to look at how this is in a year, I'd love to involve the lifeguards in that as well, because I don't know that a lot of the calls for service are made initially to the police. I think a lot of it's handled by the lifeguards, so if we can kind of triangulate that.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, do I have a motion?
I will move
Okay.
to approve the recommended amended or revised ordinance.
The recommended amended, I like it. Okay, perfect. I will second that. So let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title 4, Ordinance 2025-3, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach designating a portion of Corona Del Mar as a safety enhancement zone during the Memorial Day, 4th of July, Independence Day, and Labor Day holidays, and expanding the West Newport Safety Enhancement Zone to include the Memorial Day and Labor Day holidays by amending Section 1.4.60 Safety Enhancement Zone, Chapter 10.58 Police Services at Large Parties, Gatherings or Events on Private Property, and Section 10.66.60 Violation Penalty Civil Fine of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. The motion carries unanimously 7-0.
Terrific. Okay. Item number 13 is the Woody Lecture Hall, increase LED screen wall size. And I will say, what a great thing to be the mayor of a city where this is a first world problem. So do we would like a quick staff report, or does anyone need a staff report? Anybody? Nope. Okay. No staff report needed. Okay. Any comments or questions about council members? Council members?
I'll just make a comment. I wasn't on council, obviously, at the time when this MOU was done. And I love since this has been done back in January 2024, I've talked to so many people who are excited for this and can't wait to have their events there. But I did look at the initial MOU just to understand, and the thing that stuck out to me was part of it specifically calls out these sorts of situations from work on my own home and work on projects in Newport Mesa. One of the things that we often came across was sort of, time went on and new things that were helpful came up that people wanted. So I wanted to see if it was called out. And it is called out specifically in the MOU under furniture and fixtures, that it's only necessary change orders that are allowed. Optional ones must be covered by the requester. So that it seems in this case that was something that wouldn't be under the city's purview. That was just, and I wanted to just go into that a little bit as well, thinking that I think it would be an advantage, but there is a second stipulation that the full amount of the requesting party needs to be fulfilled prior to new projects.
Okay. Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. So first, I just want to take an opportunity to commend the Newport Beach Library Foundation, including Director Gerald Capel, who's here today, and the foundation president, Marilyn Cray, who's also here today, and the Capital Campaign Chair, Jill Johnson Tucker, who is not here today, but I do see her husband, her loving husband, in the audience there. So I'm especially impressed, as I think many of us up here would be, to learn that they are in the final phase of raising almost all the funds required by the MOU, and that to date they have very little left to raise, especially given the fact that, as we observed in the staff report, we are not really digging too deep into the contingency amount that's in the contract. And if we don't need the contingency amount, they're well on their way. And I think that's an immense achievement. And I just absolutely want to commend all the parties, including the entire foundation, for accomplishing so much in this long period of time that this project's been on our radar. I also want to recognize the staff for steering this important project. We've seen it grow up right here under our eyes, and it's been an exciting time to watch it grow and really see, lots of times we do construction around town and we don't see it actually going from, making the progress, and it's really exciting to watch it and see it grow, and we're all looking forward to December, when I know Mayor Stapleton would like to cut the ribbon on the new project, or perhaps not.
I need a ribbon cutting.
It's really important to recognize staff in that we have had so few change orders, and that many of the potentially high exposure unknown components have been pointed out that they're completed, and that we have a fair amount of certainty that most of the project contingency will not be required. So that money will remain on the table for us to use on other projects, and for the foundation not to have to raise. I agree with Councilmember Bardo that it's important to look at the contract, and this was heavily negotiated over many years and many councils, and the contract does require the requesting party to pay the cost of any change order. And in this instance, on this item, the change order or change was identified by the foundation, and under the terms of the contract, that would be their obligation. But I also consider it to be very important that this is a city legacy project. This is our project. It is not a project that's going to be operated by another entity. It's right here on this campus. It's part of our City Hall campus. And in my mind, it is a world-class project, which is something we're always looking for in this city. It's a legacy project. It's something that's going to be used every single day of the week. It's like brushing our teeth around here. That's going to be a staple in something that the community is going to get to appreciate and use, and not only through the city, but through private enterprise that is also invested in using this particular facility. And that's an important piece of it, that we acknowledge that we have partners in the project that are in the best interest. It's in our best interest to provide the best possible facility so that we can encourage those partners to come here and use the facility to its greatest advantage. It's important to understand that the planning for this construction started many, many years ago, at least 5 years ago on the current construction, and new technology is now available and presented. I would be in favor of the best possible screen that we can have. I think that there's a little bit of a disconnect on what that is. We have a screen that's described in the actual construction. We have a screen that's been presented in the staff report, and I think that there's also another option for an even larger screen. And I realize that that is an expenditure from our general fund here, and I don't take that lightly. But I do think it's something that we need to consider properly and understand exactly what is feasible and what the community could use so that we can properly use this facility going forward for many, many, many years. So I see in the staff report, and maybe staff wants to weigh in on a little, that it appears that the 9x16, which is in the in the original contract, no additional dollars, that's an option. We also have an option for an 11x19, which is $130,000 additional, which would be shared if the council was so inclined. And I've heard that there's an additional opportunity for a 13x23 screen, which would be $175,000 additional shared. In my mind, these are not huge numbers compared to the size and the scope of this legacy project. So I'm interested in hearing if we've fully vetted whether having the largest screen would be technically feasible. I've heard some stuff about sightlines and not, and so maybe I can hand it off to you in there.
Sure, thank you, Councilmember. Well, I can't say we have all the facts. We're working with our architect and their AV folks. There are a few voices here, but there are concerns on the larger the screen gets, the more we have distortions. And it can be, some folks will have a good experience, some might not so much. So when you get into the large screens, you have we haven't got all the sight lines figured out too. You have the front row folks are going to have issues with just seeing a larger screen and seeing what's on there. And then with the screen going down, because there's a roof line, we can't go up, the screen cuts into the floor. So on presentations, you might have the case where people are standing in front of the screen. The original lecture hall was designed so there's a speaker on top and the screen's above him and he's not cutting it off. That screen's going to start going in and that person will be coming into view. That's one sightline concern. The other sightline concerns, as you can imagine, as the screen gets lower and there are people in front of you, the second row starts having problems with the bottom view of it because the people in front now become a block to the screen. Those have not all been worked out at this point. I've seen a couple tentative sketches, but I just want to realize that's the issue. The architect does have some concerns too. The aspects ratios, as you get too big, if you've been in IMAX and you're up close, it just doesn't make as much sense. So those front seats might not be the desirable ones. Again, there's a couple things. The lecture hall was designed around maybe lectures and a great screen set up there. The sound system is built for lectures. So the other thing that I've heard too is they want to do maybe high-end cinema in here. It's not built for cinema sound. You'll get good sound, but you would have to add to the sound system, which hasn't been looked at either, to maybe get the quality. Otherwise, you'll have a good experience, but I'm not sure what the expectation is on that. So again, the point is not all the bugs have been worked out, but we have some information for you.
So I would 100% defer to staff and to your expertise on this, and I'm glad to hear a little bit more of an explanation. Does that mean the 13x23 screen is impacted that way, or would that also include the 11x19 screen?
So, and I can show you an exhibit if you want to see. I've got some, if you don't mind, I can bring that up. And I'll keep my presentation brief, but just to kind of show some things. So here's an example of the screens looking from I believe the center there, and you can see the profile. The red rectangle there is the original screen, 9 by 16. And just for reference, by the way, someone asked me this question, how does that relate to, a screen in our community room right next door, to give you some reference? The one next door is about 6 feet 9 inches by 12 feet. So this one's 9 by 16. It's going to be larger than that screen. The first proposal, which is in your packet from the foundation, is for raising that to an 11 by 19 screen, which is your blue line, and you can see how it starts cutting into that speaker on the stage. Again, that can be worked out. Maybe the person stands on the side. Maybe he gets closer. As he gets closer to the screen, then the sight line improves. And then just recently, you'll see in your packet today, there's another letter that came in from the foundation last night that they would like to look forward to the 13 by 23 size. That is the yellow line on there. And you can see now you start getting a much larger issue there. When you look from the seating standpoint here, and we've laid these out per colors here, you can see the red line obviously is the current screen, and it's just that person can be in the way depending if he goes to the screen or not. When you get into the blues, you start seeing more of a cut, and then you see that yellow screen, which is the current proposal. And not only do you have the person problem in the way, but then start looking at the second and third seats there. Those people in their headlines will have to pass through that first row to see the bottom of that screen. Those have not been worked out yet. Those are just real quick because we just started looking at this. The other nature of this problem that we have is a timely issue. This is on the critical path. We're coming into it for construction. The framing's already up. The wall's being built. I don't know what it would take to buy some of these. I don't have that information. With all the issues coming from Asia and tariffs and all that, I worry about supply chain issues, but you don't want to get into a project delay. This decision is kind of late in the discussion. We can do it, but you add some possibility of delay to the project, which then doesn't get the mayor cutting the ribbon in December, and we might end up paying the contractor more. But it may work. I'm not saying it doesn't. We just don't know that because the technology changes when you make the different screen. You get into different drivers. We need another circuit on it. They also need to probably develop software where you get the box you've seen where everything's black except just what you want to see. Those are things that we just haven't got enough information yet. So if that answers your question.
Well, definitely more information today is better, and I feel like we have gotten a little more information. I mean, I guess given all of that, where are you leaning, knowing that you have a time consideration and that there might be, that the amounts that we're looking at, either no additional, 130 additional, or 175 additional, knowing those amounts, where are you leaning as far as advising from a technical standpoint on what we should be looking at?
Well, from what I know, my concern comes from the constructability. I don't want to come back and say I've got a big change order for you. I don't know enough about that. I asked Sean Levin, our Director of Recreation, to come today because programming is really the driving on this. From what I've heard, and Sean can comment on this, is that we have a nice screen that's planned for the venue, and it'll take care of all the extra needs and maybe cinema. Getting a larger screen is an enhancement. But we don't know what the impacts are in that. I don't know if it's so much a cost issue, but maybe Sean, you want to speak to the program of that?
Yeah, the screen as it's proposed will work. Bigger one's better. What I would caution against is the yellow, the 13 by 23, because I worry long term that's low to the ground. It's going to get hit. It's going to be maintenance. It's going to get broken. I think we're going to have issues with that because it's so low. And the other thing for maintenance, there's just a longer term maintenance item with this too, because these are multiple screens that are put together, and they go out on occasion. And the other issue we've had with the community room is we actually ordered a couple extra in the beginning because what happens is down the line they're not available. It's like technology, things change all the time. So I mean that's maybe another option is, if we did start out with the 9 by 16 or 11 by 19, we had to live in it for a while and figure out what makes sense. So those are my initial thoughts, but I mean, we can work with any of these. I would caution against the largest though, because I think there'd be a maintenance concern with it getting broken or hit.
And I just point one thing. If you look at this, you can barely see it, but you start seeing the background. There's framing in there. You see the two lines outside the yellow. So we are concerned on. There was an original proposal that big shaded area was going to be the next proposal screen. It's way too big. We'd have to frame out more. But we are starting to get near the edges, so there'll be some structural issues if we get too big.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Councilman Weigand.
Yes, I'm supportive of the screens here, changing them to whatever the foundation wants. I want to do this once, though. I don't want to come back to this. So if when you guys come up to speak, you say you want this larger one, and you need some more time to study it. I don't want to go and approve this middle one and then come back a few months later and say, you know what, we really wanted the big one. So I've kind of heard some rumblings about this, but I'm not, fully in the loop on what it all you want. So when you come up here, tell us what you want. I'm supportive of helping here. And Director Webb, 0.8% of the 10% allowable, is that a typo? Is that supposed to be 8% or is that 0.8?
No, that's 0.8. We're under 1%. Right now we're tracking to be about 1.5. We've got a couple out there, but still we're out of the real critical stages. So I do think we'll come in a delight in this case unless something really goes wrong. We have some framing issues, a couple of change orders here and there, but most of the big stuff's behind us unless there's a blatant error that I don't see.
To me, that's a big indicator of a positive track here. That's why I'm supportive of this. But I don't want to come back, and I don't want you to go in there when it's built and put in another screen either. I want this done once. I think it's best to tackle it while you have an open, ability while it's in construction. So I get it, but if you need more time to look at it, then let's continue the item and come back and do it once. I don't want to have this be another agenda item for this council to decide on. Who knows what my colleagues want to do here tonight on this, but I support, especially the blue screen. The yellow part is kind of a new thing, so when you guys come up, I hope you're able to kind of explain what the foundation really wants. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Blum.
Thank you. I was going to wait to hear you guys talk, but a couple things real quick. I was part of the committee that wrote this MOU. And this was not an easy vote for me. And I think the most important thing that we did was this exact piece that we're talking about right now. That anyone requesting a change would pay for the change. And now all those fears come to play because there's a change. And right now it's steel out there. We're going to build it, but we're talking about TV changes and sound changes. And now, where's it go? So there's no way I can approve this. From my personal side, this was one of the most important things. It's how that building started getting built. So it's not about the cost for me. It's about this idea that this is the beginning of a slippery slope, that we start asking for a lot more. Let's finish the building, upgrade a TV later if you need to, add new sound. You can do amazing things, but right now we committed to building a building, and that's pretty much all I'm going to support. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments by council before we go to comments? Nope. Okay. Let's go to public comments on this item.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Well, thanks, everybody. I deeply appreciate you giving us the opportunity, and you pretty much gave my speech, both of you. So I'm Marilyn Cray, and I'm the chair of the Newport Beach Public Library Foundation, and we are honored to be working on this building with you. And I deeply appreciate Noah's comments that as we were looking at and putting together that MOU that we spent last Christmas on, the objective behind that was to ensure that we didn't have a slippery slope. However, I think this is different. And the reason why I think it is different is that when 5 years ago we went and did this work on what should we do on a screen, it was the technology that was available at the time. In addition, this was a library lecture hall. It was not what it has evolved to, which is more of an auditorium for the city. So people have come to us and said, when you're building this, similar to what Eric has said, why are you putting in such a small screen? And I hearken back to the Sphere. You look at what's going on at Mariners. You look at the mayor's presentation at the dinner. What made that so phenomenal, besides the fact that Joe's terrific, was those phenomenal screens. So as we thought about it, on February 10th, we got together as our group and we said, should we, as being part of this community, make the recommendation that we increase the size of the screen? For our lectures, I'll be honest with you, the smaller screen is fine. It works for us. You commented on it. When you're just doing slides that an author is coming in for. But we want to look at it for the greater good of the community. The greater good of the community is going to be using this for additional purposes, more diverse purposes from which we originally did not define this space to be, but what it's evolved to, and which I'm very proud it has evolved to that. So at this point, I think we need a bigger screen. And so that's why we came forward and said, as a community, as part of the community, we will help pay for that. We will do the 50% on it. So that was why we thought it would be one of those items that would be jointly shared. As opposed to the chair naming, which we paid for that on our own, because that was for our purposes to do chair naming rights in the future. So at this point, you saw the three sizes. If we walk away from this and you say, no, we're not going to do a new screen, we'll be fine. It's still going to be great for the Newport Beach Library. We're going to use it 50 days a year. What about the people that are using it for the rest of the time? The rest of the time, people have said they would like to see a larger screen. Now, you mentioned about the larger screen. I love the slide. Oh, sorry.
We can keep going.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
I'm closing up here. I don't think we know about that larger, the 23, the 19 by 23, I think it is, whether or not that would be the right size. But I think it's worth a day or two to figure that out, to make sure that, as Eric said, that we're putting in the right screen for the community.
Okay.
Any questions? No?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any of the public comments?
Adam Leverance again. It's late in the game for this observation, but having been a field service guy for my career and working on things like that and every other electronic thing you can imagine, and staff's comments over here, technology changes. The foresight to buy replacements for the parts that go bad. At some point, though, that is not an option any longer. And technology, as the lady just said, has advanced in 5 years. And option 3 on here is to provide different direction should you go that route. That projector above my head, some of these things are incredibly high definition now. And it's a lot easier to maintain and replace that than 12 separate screens that become out of date over time. Granted, the intensity of LED screens has a lot more bang to it, and again, it's late in the game, but just the options, the long-term costs of maintaining, and even the ability to maintain are things that are good to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
I love this opportunity, Larry Tucker. When I was on the Planning Commission, half the people that got up said, first thing they said is, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. So I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and speak, and I'm going to speak directly to Councilmember Blum. As part of your council duties, it's not only the construction aspects and those costs, but it's the operational aspects. And 50 days a year, it's the foundation's facility. The other 85% of the year, it's the city's facility. The city's takes care of the entire maintenance aspect. So I think it might be prudent to reconsider your position, because you're going to want to ensure that it is appealing to the broadest number of entities and organizations. And the little bit bigger screen, this thing's pretty amazing to me that all that underground work got done, all the structural work, the steel's all there, and 0.8% was the overruns. I mean, how do your jobs go? Mine never came close to that, unfortunately. But so there is some some latitude that that you have. And I understand all the comments about, reframing and the delay, so I get that part. But I do think it would be worthwhile for the, to pay for half of it. I think the foundation's kind of indicated without saying it directly. If you don't want to pay for half, they're not going to pay for any of it either. But this is your building, and they're willing to pay for half and only get 15% of the use. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, Councilman Weigand.
Yeah, Marilyn, can I ask you another question? Can't read the tea leaves up here of how this vote will go down, so
Okay.
before we make that vote, I'll ask you these questions here. We have three options that are in front of us. Option 1 is deny this request. Option 2 is approve the request. And option 3 is provide other direction with regards to Newport Beach Public Library Foundation's request to increase size of lecture hall. Seeing that if there aren't the votes here to get that change, what would you think that would be in the best interest of the foundation? Aside from Mr. Tucker's comments, that we'll get the bulk of the use, but with half the cost. Would the foundation be interested in raising those funds to cover the costs of that and then put that down on the books as, an additional to the amount that you have to raise, considering you're less than $1 million needed to finish this thing off? So the public-private partnership, you're pretty close to being successful in that endeavor, and there are some naysayers out in the community that doesn't think that you'll be able to even get to that, which I am doubtful on. I think you will be able to get to, but seeing here that we have to take a vote, and if the vote doesn't go that way, what would the foundation be interested in? Seeing that there's only so much time if there's as Director Webb had said, a large lead time to get these screens in place. Again, I think it's best to do it now. I don't think we should be redoing this project when the thing's built, because that will slow down the programming, that'll slow down what we need to be doing, and that's showcasing this amazing thing that we've added to the city. So I want to do it now while it's being built, not later. So just maybe some thoughts if you have them. I called you up probably on the fly to do so, but
Absolutely. First, I do want to thank Dave for all the work that he's done, because I think it was beautiful work. It really helped everybody see the difference and what the screen will look like in the future, and to see what it looked like when it was originally designed, so that you can see, why we did it the way we did. We voted on February 10th at our foundation board meeting, and we did approve for the 19 by 23 and the 11 by 17 at that time. The next day, I guess it went to a sub-council here, where it was deemed the 11 by 17 was the one that was sent forward to all of you to vote on. Would we love the 23, the largest screen? Yes, I think it would be great. I do have concerns based on what he talked about here, meaning the kicking, is it going to be the safest option, et cetera. You had a couple of concerns about just the maintenance on it. So the 11 by 17 is a good compromise.
11 by 19.
11 by 19, thank you for correcting me. That would be a good compromise if that's something that can be voted on separately. Your question is also, would the foundation pay for the entire screen? And the answer at the foundation meeting on the 10th was no, that we would only pay for half. So I think that's something to consider too. Any other questions?
Great, thank you. Yeah, that really gives us two options here, because I can't think of a third unless somebody up here is thinking something else. And
well, I guess my only concern is from coming from a technology background, we will have to redo the screen at some point. We are going to be redoing it, because even if we go for the middle-sized technology changes, like he said, I'm just thinking about all the theaters that we've built over the years at Newport Mesa, and every 10 years or so, you have to completely redo the sound system and completely redo the screen. So it's not a one and done. The way I look at it is, what can we get done now on time, on budget, have something beautiful, people use it, we have this need, and then in another few years when we have to redo it anyway, we've kind of lived in it and seen how it works. That's where I'm coming from.
10 years versus today. They're asking for it today, not 10 years from now. So if they put it in and they look at it and they say that was the wrong move, which is I think what they're saying right now, they're already analyzing it and saying that we want something bigger than what was proposed. That's what we're talking about. So while it's open, I don't want to come back in 6 months after it's built and say, you know what, we really should have put that bigger screen in there. Now's the time we have that window to do so. But those are my thoughts.
Councilman Blum.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tucker, too. I appreciate bringing up both rental cost, construction budget, and cost per use to try to convince me of something. It was well done. But again, I'm going to come back to a very simple fact that I look at ourselves as the people building this project. People are going to rent it, as Mr. Tucker pointed out. You guys are going to utilize it. So this seems like a tenant improvement to me, rather than part of the construction of a building. And again, I'm not disagreeing with any part of would a bigger screen be better? I don't know. I don't care. What I care about is the original agreement that we signed. And upholding that agreement is how that building gets built. And it's not about a size of a screen or what would look better or when technology changes. We're prepared for that. You know, we have facilities financing plans where we make sure we can upgrade things on a regular basis. We make sure we can put the best piece in. The nuance of this discussion and what's difficult for me is we signed an agreement and we're looking to uphold that agreement. And that's pretty much why it's black and white for myself. It's not about technology and screens. So I really do appreciate the fact that you guys are looking at it, talking about it on a regular basis, want to make it a world-class facility. That's important to us as well. It's amazing what happens in world-class facilities. People come in later and want to donate more. They want to make it better. But we can't always start with top tier on everything. This isn't every feature we can get on the car when we're building it. Let's work our way up to it. So that's my general thought. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments? If not, I'll look for a motion by someone. Councilman.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. And what is that motion?
I'm going to move that we approve staff recommendation B, that we increase the screen size to the 11 by 19 and share the cost with the foundation.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's vote.
With council members Grant and Weigand voting yes, the motion fails 5-2. 2-5.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt option 1 and B and not approve. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second? Kleiman seconds. Mayor Pro Tem. Let's vote.
With Councilmember Weigand voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
Okay. Thank you. Item 14 is the appointment of planning commissioner to fill an unscheduled vacancy. Do we have any council members have any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, do we have any public comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, let's vote.
The appointee needs at least 4 votes to be appointed. Councilmember Blom votes for Greg Reed. Councilmember Weber, Greg Reed. Councilmember Grant, Greg Reed. Councilmember Bartow, Greg Reed. Councilmember Weigand, Greg Reed. Mayor Pro Tem Kleiman, Greg Reed, and Mayor Stapleton, Greg Reed. So he is appointed for the term that expires on June 30th of this year.
Terrific. Congratulations, Mr. Reed. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you read the announcement for motion for reconsideration?
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Okay, are there any motions for reconsideration? Seeing none? All right, we will now go to closed session. Mr. Harp, do you have a closed session announcement?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will adjourn a closed session to meet with the city's labor negotiators regarding negotiations with all unions and the council appointees, discuss the performance of the council appointees, and to meet with legal counsel regarding the litigation titled Barbara Salvini versus the City of Newport Beach. And that's all is set forth on the agenda under items 12A through D. The council appointees will recuse themselves from item 12C, and the city manager and city attorney will recuse themselves from 12D based on possible financial impact.
Okay, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you. All right, we're back. Yolanda, is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor. There is no reportable action tonight.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.